Risks with HomeBuilder. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I've got my stein of coffee, and I thought we'd have a look at this news.com.au article discussing some risks associated with the HomeBuilder scheme, and the 10 words, the fatal flaw apparently in the government scheme. And as an architect, I'm going to tell you some strategies to overcome and manage these risks. So let's have a look. So Prime Minister Scott Morrison's controversial scheme has already been lashed by critics, but a critical sentence has exposed its true fatal flaw. It's true, a fatal flaw. Come on, Alexis. I think you've probably never built anything, have you? Never engaged a team. The HomeBuilder program was slammed by detractors almost as soon as it was announced, with many claiming details in the fine print would end up shafting those who needed it most. Most of the fierce backlash so far has centered on the strict eligibility criteria, which limits the $688 million scheme to Aussies who are building a new home worth less than $750,000. What's wrong with that? Makes a lot of sense. You can get a lot of homes cheaper than $750,000. Most people don't need huge bloody McMansions, guys. What happened to people building a little two better and then extending on it as they needed, as it demanded? You don't need all those empty rooms to store your IKEA crap. Seriously, it's frustrating. I still remember visiting a client's house. He wanted this gymnasium. This gymnasium was like the size of a double garage for one person. He had all this electronic equipment, all this stuff there. It was bigger than my apartment at the time. He was a wealthy dentist. And I remember going up there a few years later and having a look to see the gymnasium that he did, and it was just ludicrous. Ludicrous. When, you know, all he needs a bench and some weights. But anyway, this isn't, you know, you can get a house built for a couple $100,000, guys. A little specky. That's all you need for a first home. The $25,000 cash grant can also be put towards certain renovations worth between $150,000 and $750,000. That will result in the property being priced at $1.5 million or less. It will only be available to those couples who earn, well, singles who earn less than $125,000 a year, or couples who earn less than $200,000 a year. But it turns out one critical detail most Australians so far have missed could be one fatal flaw that dooms the entire package to fail. According to a property insider, the biggest hole in the plan is the strict timeframes the government has based on it. Simon Wilkins, director and senior consultant at Sydney firm Inspire Property Investing, told News.com a single 10-word sentence exposed the glaring problem. I worked in the property industry for the last 6 years. That's not very long. And there is a massive issue with the HomeBuilder scheme. As they say, the devil is in the details. Feels like this is an advertisement for his business, but anyway. This is the reason why it actually won't work for almost anyone who applies. It says construction must commence within 3 months of the contract date. Oh no! 3 months of the contract date. Okay. You want to get... There's a few ways to deal with it. If you don't, you know... Well, no, I'll keep reading and we'll talk about it. He said the typical time frame involves organizing a new build was a loophole that likely meant many would miss out altogether, and that is probably the biggest flaw in the whole scheme. Really? So a typical build. Normally buyers would purchase a registered block of land and sign a building contract before applying for finance with a lender, as they are required to execute a building contract and land contract. But at the moment, banks are taking about 3 and 5 weeks just to approve finance, and the buyer who will also need to settle on the land, which can take 2 to 3 weeks. Once the land is settled, the builder then orders a number of processes such as soil tests and plans to be submitted to the local council, which can take around 4 weeks to complete. It can take anywhere from 3 to 5 weeks for approval on a good day from council, with this step taking 6 weeks from one for Mr. Wilkins' clients. Okay, well, how do you address that risk? Very simply, once you have control of the site, the builder takes possession of the site within 3 months of the contract, one way or another. Oh look, they walk out on site before they have council approval, and they hammer a sign on the site saying this site is under control. They hire their site protective fence. They put a fence around it to contain the site. Going, well, you know, put in awaiting council approval, not doing any work, just getting control security of the site. Oh, look, they've got that soil test done, which really you should do before you even buy the bloody land, you idiot. Seriously, $500 for a soil test. Do it before you buy the land so you know how much your foundation's going to cost. Right there. But he's been in it for 6 years, so I'm sure he knows. And there you go. Boom. There. First stage of the contract is instigated. The builder has control of the site. They've incurred some costs for their prelims. And then you have to pay them in a month's time. That portion. Normally. Okay? So there. Where's the problem? Where's the problem? Oh, the site's going to sit there forlorn for another month until the approvals come through. But this builder has sites. They've got ongoing costs every week. That's the contract fulfilled. Where's the problem, guys? That's how I would deal with it. Right there. Boom. Oh, and what happens if they don't get their finance? You just make the whole process contingent on you receiving. Well, here's the thing. You put the risk on the builder. You say if the builder doesn't adequately occupy the site within this period, the builder has to, they put a liquidated damages on them of $25,000, which could be the amount of money that you would incur or that you would not receive from the grant. So it's a fair, equitable, and reasonable cost. Seems to make perfect sense. But then again, you have to understand, I'm not a property investor. I'm an architect. So we do a lot of negotiating these contracts and discussing them. You can put whatever you want in them. The problem is if you just go down the standard master builder's contract, the standard HIA contract, it's going to be tilted towards the builder. I would recommend that you go with an Australian standards construction contract. Pay the couple of $100 to get it and do any site additions or requirements into that contract. Get your own legal advice, get a lawyer or an architect to talk to you about it and look at it that way. That's how I'd manage it, guys, right there. It's that simple. But if you don't have the knowledge... So let's keep going here. Once that approval is granted by the council, the builder then needs an authority to commence letter from the bank, which could take another week. And the builder will also need another 2 weeks after receiving that crucial letter to organize things like materials, labels before they can get on site. Well, they should just do it earlier. You can give them you can push them to start it earlier. It's that simple. The whole process, with no hiccups, can take a minimum of 15 weeks or almost 4 months. But in most cases, it's 5 months, he said. The time frame just doesn't work. What do you do if you're relying on the $25,000 as part of your deposit and it runs over 3 months? I just told you what you did. You put it on the builder so that the builder, it becomes their responsibility to ensure that they get access to the site one way or another. And they'll do it. They'll just, a bit of site fencing and a bit of control of the site is easy. Maybe you need to get architects or project managers managing this process for you to help ensure you get it. After you sign the contract, see, and this is the thing, he's probably going standard contracts. There are many variables before the builders are on site, and that is a bit of a nightmare. Both of my clients didn't factor that in. Well, aren't you project managing it or investing it? The issue is the scheme works in principle, but it puts too much reliance on things that are beyond the control of the purchaser. Mr. Watkins said he was advising his clients who were eligible for the grant not to count on getting it because of that tough time limit, which he said can put pressure on banks, builders, and local councils. However, Mr. Wilkins said the problem could easily be fixed either by doubling the window to 6 months and requiring the contract is simply signed between now and the end of the year without construction having begun. Mr. Wilkins said another downside of the scheme was that it would push people to buy registered land only, which in turn would drive up prices for everyone. He said in Sydney, at least, registered land only made up a tiny slice of the market, and the scheme would ramp up demand for what little was available. Well, there you go. Simple solution. Open up more land. But I know that'll take time, and I know that's not going to work in this time frame from a long-term perspective. That's the argument. A lot of people argue for that we have a land shortage here in Australia on a continent that's bigger than Europe. He said in Sydney, there is more unregistered land. That's just the way the market is at the moment. So this will drive everyone to registered blocks of land. When lots of people want to buy something, prices go up, he explained. On the flip side, those who bought unregistered land would delay their building contracts until it was registered, which would mean it's difficult for builders to plan their jobs for months ahead. No one will be signing building contracts until their land is registered, which means builders won't have a pipeline of builds in their system, he explained. It will only come through once clients sign building contracts, which makes it very hard for buyers to forecast jobs, so builders to forecast the jobs coming in. This really needs to be addressed urgently as the scheme won't work. Mr. Wilkins said another downside was that the scheme was limited to Australian citizens only, which meant permanent residents missed out. I think there are a lot of people that would appreciate that. But then again, permanent residents. My mother's one. She's been in this country for most of her life and paid a lot of taxes. Seems like a shortage. But I think it was done for political reasons. There are a lot of permanent residents. We have a lot of clients from India, for example, who have lived here for 10 years. So I don't know why they're excluded. If you really want to drive a buying market, he said. No, it's creating economic stimulus. It's only for 6 months. That makes it a bit inhibitive as well. And what it has done is not broaden the market by getting more people in. It's actually narrowed it down quite a lot. However, Mr. Wilkins did dismiss one of the major criticisms of the scheme, which was that the 750 property limit value excluded city dwellers. We do a lot of builds in the western suburbs, and 99% of the clients are below the 750 mark. You can do a decent build for 250 to 300, and easily you get a block for 400. So that point is a bit mute unless you're building a mansion, he said. And he's right there. I agree with him there. So interest has surged. Despite concerns with the scheme, leading tradie platforms HipHighPage has already observed a spike. It's always observing a spike in online inquiries, isn't it? In requests for renovation and home extension, with homeowners already seeking local trusted tradies for projects that would allow them to take advantage of the $25,000 grant. Job numbers posted on this site's renovator category were 4.4 times higher yesterday compared to last Thursday's job numbers in the same category, while the home extension category was 6.5 times higher. Co-founder and CEO Roby Shannon Zipster said a likely spike in home renovations would ensure, which would help the wider community. We welcome the stringent criteria around the grants, helping to guarantee the viability and longevity of tradie projects and ensuring they are not put on hold halfway due to homeowners being unable to afford the overall costs, he said. We see these grants as helping to boost the construction sector with the potential to provide $5.86 billion lift to the wider economy. So here we have it, guys. Some concerns with this scheme, some strategies I would suggest you could implement to help mitigate that risk. Essentially, I would put it all onto the builder as potential liquidated damages under your contract. If they don't meet that time frame and you don't get the grant, the builder owes you $25,000. You can do it. It's fair and reasonable. Then the builder can proceed with the contract. Put it on them. Put it on them. As always, please let me know your thoughts and opinions. Are you a fan of this scheme? Do you think the time frame should be extended? Or do you prefer the fact that it's constrained? We'll have to wait and see what happens. As always, thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. If you're a fan and you want to support us, there are a few ways you can. You can join the channel on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us via using our affiliate links at Amazon or eBay or Independent Reserve and Kucoin. You can buy our merch from HeiseSays, use PayPal or Gold Pass. Take care. Have a great weekend. I'll see you in the next video.